Welcome back to the Weekly Huddle YouTube channel. I'm your host, Owen, and today is going to be a shorter version of the power rankings. So this week we have only a little bit of movement here. It's not going to be that much difference. I think I'm just going to make this a short, quick run-through of kind of recapping the games and then getting into a part at the end where I preview the XFL playoffs and who I want to see in that and what kind of matchups I'd like to see now that we know what the clinching scenarios are. Starting off at 8 with no movement here is going to be the Vegas Vipers. They did play the Houston Roughnecks tighter than I would have expected, but at the same time, the Roughnecks have been struggling as of lately. So Brandon Silvers continues to either be playing through an injury or just regressing entirely after the injury. So let's see what goes on with that. But I think the Vipers are cooked. They've been cooked. All the big NFL name talents they grabbed in the draft and built their team around, like Martavis Bryant and Vic Beasley Jr. and Geronimo Allison. Brett Hundley, they're all not really showing out for them. I don't even think Brett Hundley was playing for them this week. And outside of that, they just haven't had a consistent quarterback room all year, whether it was Brett Hundley or Luis Perez, who's now on a different team. They've gone through so many different quarterbacks and offensive schemes and just haven't been able to put anything together. So in the tier of their own at the bottom, what used to be relegated for the Guardians specifically is now going to be the Vipers. Just from, even though they played the Roughnecks close and tight, they have not shown me anything that shows to be a capable XFL team that can compete for a championship. And even with Jalen McClendon going for 2 touchdowns this week, it's just nothing consistent with them. In the next tier, it's going to be at number 7, falling down 2 spots, and one of only 2 teams that have moved this week. It's going to be the Orlando Guardians, dropping 2 spots, and this is what happens when your team is solely reliant on Quentin Dormady playing out of his mind, and then Quentin Dormady gets banged up and can't really play out of his mind. So this team is very one-dimensional when it comes to how they're going to score points, and they lost to the Brahmas this week and allowed the Brahmas to keep their hopes alive, and that's why the Brahmas here are sitting at number 6. They're going to be here looking to try to secure that last South playoff spot. They need to win and have the Renegades, who are number 5 team, moving up 2 spots here, to lose. And Renegades as well need to win and have the Brahmas lose. I think the Renegades, just if they're winning, they are in. But they could win. If they win or the Brahmas lose, they're in because they're a win ahead. Brahmas need both things to happen. The Brahmas, for some reason, Jack Cohn just popped off. I think it's because the Guardians' defense isn't particularly great. So he had a favorable matchup. However, I think the Renegades overall, despite losing to the Defenders, played a better game. If it wasn't for a Luis Perez pick 6, I think they would have beat the Defenders, which is kind of surprising. And I just think Perez is probably the answer the Renegades really needed at quarterback. They needed that steady hand they haven't really had, and the Vipers gave up on him too quickly, personally. And I think the Bob Stoops offense is really complimenting Perez a lot. So I think they're slightly the better team right now, and I think they'll have the better chances between them and the Brahmas to knock off our number 4 team. And in our brand new tier, the Houston Roughnecks not moving. Roughnecks just still sputtering the quarterback position, which used to be a strength, if not middle of the pack. They're not they didn't have the kind of quarterback in 3 teams ahead of them. Brandon Silvers was still competent enough to be leading the league in some stats or being the top of the other ones. Now, ever since that injury and Cole McDonald having a few starts, it's been just a spiral downhill. So Roughnecks going from my favorites to win the whole thing to probably maybe not even getting to the finals out of the South. So we'll see how that goes. The Renegades are getting hot at the right moment. The Roughnecks are still cooling off, so that's not good. Number 3, again, no movement here, is going to be the St. Louis Battlehawks, losing to the Seattle Sea Dragons. This is going to be another one of those ones where, and we're going to have a tier gap here. It's number 2, the Seattle Sea Dragons, so I can talk about them real quick. It's going to be in a situation where I don't know who I want to make it. I really wish the Defenders didn't make it because I would have loved to see another Battlehawks Sea Dragons game. But after this one, which is one of the ones I've actually watched the entire game of this week, I watched the rest of them in replays and stuff where I was able to skip around some of the punts and things like that. Even though there was a fake punt by the Guardians this week, which was pretty cool. Or was it the Guardians? I believe it was the Guardians. However, the one I watched live happening as it was being played was the St. Louis Battlehawks and Seattle Sea Dragons. And from what this looked at, it seemed like the Sea Dragons are a tier above them. This is the Battlehawks, that is. They both have really good offenses. I think I just trust the Sea Dragons defense a little bit more. And it's unfortunate that these 2 teams, one of them has to get out, and one of the teams from the South, and even both teams from the South, have to make it over them. So And then, of course, the DC Defenders at 1, trying to give the game away to the Renegades. If they had a lead, they could have put their foot on the throat and crushed them and killed them. But they didn't. They let the Renegades come back and make it a game, go to overtime. And that's really disappointing. I almost put the Sea Dragons above the Defenders after this week's win. But I can't really go off of that based on just how the Defenders have looked playing the Sea Dragons the last few times they played. Which actually, I don't know if they played a second time. I'm not sure. That's a great question. I'm going to double check that right now. Because week 10, it is Defenders versus Browns, so they have, yes. So the Defenders have beaten the Sea Dragons twice now. So I couldn't really, in good faith, put the Sea Dragons ahead of the Defenders. So that is the power rankings this week. Now, just so that way this isn't like a 5-minute little fuck off video, I'm going to talk about some of the potential playoff matchups and who I want to see make it. So out of the South, Roughnecks have clinched. It's between the Renegades and the Brahmas, and I personally want to see the Renegades. I think Luis Perez has been one of those stalwart springtime football quarterbacks that could always lead your team to a good playoff run, and I think they have the better chance of anybody to unseat the Roughnecks. Now, if the Roughnecks can get healthy and figure out their quarterback situation, I probably wouldn't even play Brandon Silvers this final week, just so he can get healthier, if that's the issue. Their defense has been good, and I think the Renegades' offensive line is not going to be able to hold up well against the Roughnecks' defensive front, so I even no matter who comes out of the South, I think the Roughnecks is going to be going to the finals. But the Renegades give the most potential now with Perez at quarterback to be the ones to upset the Roughnecks. So we'll see where that goes. The more interesting conversation is going to be the Battlehawks and the Sea Dragons, where there are like 4 different tiebreakers that they can go through. I don't really probably understand it. It's like points scored as opposed to the rest of the league or something regarding that with points scored and things like that. I didn't look too deep into it. If you want to check that out, go check out the XFL analyst on Instagram. He has a good little breakdown of it. But between the two teams, I personally think the Sea Dragons would be a more entertaining game against the Defenders. They had that 33-34 loss a few weeks ago, and then the last time they played before that was like week 1. So, but the Battlehawks have also played the Defenders tight. So I think both these teams have a really good chance to upset the Defenders in the North playoffs. And I think any of these 3 teams that come out of the North are going to win the whole thing. So that is my personal opinion on what's going to happen at the playoffs. I don't really see the Roughnecks being able to hold on and be that dominant team that win the championship, but I do think they have a much easier pathway to it. And maybe if the 2 teams in the North just absolutely kick the crap out of each other in their playoff game and weaken them to go against the Roughnecks, and the Roughnecks catch fire and get a little hot, maybe blow out whoever they play in the South Division game, then they might be able to come away with the win. But that's just my opinion. I don't think the Roughnecks are on the same playing field as maybe the Defenders or even the Sea Dragons. Battlehawks make it. Maybe it's a little more even, but even then I'd still probably take the Battlehawks. But that's just my predictions for that. I think final prediction, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to say the Sea Dragons win the whole thing. They're going to be top the Defenders and then throw all over the Roughnecks, and that'll be your XFL champions in this new league here. So tell me if you agree or disagree. I look forward to seeing that. I have, if you guys remember, and if you guys are viewers from way back when, I used to do this show with Christian Tabor. He's going to be doing the USFL power rankings. I know they just played their first weekends of games, and while I was looking at the XFL stuff, I had him watching USFL games, and he's going to be doing the power rankings for that. So stay tuned for those. It's coming up to the draft in about 9 days. So I'm going to be putting out podcasts like the top 10 linebackers, probably at least one more deep dive on a prospects film. I'm going to do a breakdown of the Buffalo Bills draft, who they should be looking for to draft, my underrated offense and defense, or my sleeper teams, as well as what I would do mock draft and a predictive mock draft. So I have at least 7 videos coming out this way over the next 7 days. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys in the next one.